On a quiet evening in Virginia, 4 police officers think they've made just another arrest. In their patrol car sits Colonel Marcus Richardson, a 27-year Pentagon veteran with a distinguished military career. The officers laugh as they ignore his military ID and dismiss his calm explanations. They don't know they've just made the biggest mistake of their careers. As they mock his service record, Colonel Richardson makes one simple phone call. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't resist. He just dials a number he hasn't used in years, a direct line to the Pentagon's highest office. In the next 30 minutes, these officers will learn a powerful lesson about accountability, as their routine arrest triggers a chain reaction that reaches the highest levels of military command. The dashboard clock reads 7:43 p.m. when Colonel Marcus Richardson's silver Lexus glides to a stop at the intersection of King Street and Washington Boulevard. His day at the Pentagon had run long, reviewing classified intelligence reports that would never see the light of day. The streets of Alexandria are quiet, most commuters already home, when blue lights flash in his rearview mirror. Richardson checks his speedometer, 32 in a 35 zone. His turn signal is working. Tags are current. 27 years of military service have taught him to maintain everything by the book. He guides his car to the curb with practiced precision, movements deliberate and calm. Officer James Rankin approaches, flashlight beam cutting through the evening darkness. Behind him, 3 more officers exit their vehicles, unusual for a routine traffic stop. Richardson's hands rest at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel, visible. "License and registration," Rankin demands. No greeting, no explanation for the stop. "Good evening, officer," Richardson responds, his voice carrying the measured authority of a man who's briefed presidents. "May I ask why I'm being stopped?" Rankin's flashlight beam shifts to Richardson's face, holding there longer than necessary. "You cross the double yellow back there." Richardson knows this isn't true. His military-honed situational awareness never falters, especially when driving, but decades of experience have also taught him which battles to fight and when. "I see," he says, maintaining eye contact. "My license is in my wallet, and my registration is in the glove compartment. I'm going to reach for them now." "Just hurry up," another officer calls out, Davidson according to his nameplate. He's younger, more aggressive, hand resting on his holster. Richardson moves with deliberate slowness, narrating each action. "I'm reaching for my wallet." The key. Leather fold opens to reveal his driver's license and behind it, his Pentagon credentials. The gold Defense Department seal catches the flashlight's beam. Rankin snorts. "Pentagon, huh? Sure." He takes the license, ignoring the military ID. "Registration. In the glove compartment," Richardson repeats, hand moving slowly toward the compartment. Inside, alongside the registration, sits a small album of family photos, his daughter's law school graduation, his son's return from Afghanistan. Memories that remind him why maintaining dignity matters. The next few minutes unfold, like a carefully choreographed dance of power and prejudice. Officers circle his car, flashlights probing the interior. Questions overlap with accusations. "Where you coming from? You been drinking?" "Car looks expensive for this neighborhood." Richardson answers each query with the same steady composure that once guided him through hostage negotiations in Baghdad. "I'm returning home from the Pentagon, where I serve as a full colonel. I haven't had any alcohol. I've lived in this neighborhood for 15 years. His military ID sits ignored. On the dashboard, the truth of his words dismissed before they're even considered. Officer Davidson leans into the window, smirking. "A colonel? At the Pentagon? Man, you need to work on your story." The situation escalates with the arrival of a K-9 unit, called in without cause or warrant. Richardson watches in his side mirror. As Officer Rankin's posture shifts, the telltale sign of a man who's already decided how this scene ends. "Step out of the vehicle," Rankin orders, hand moving to his belt. Richardson takes a slow, deep breath. In his mind, he sees the faces of younger officers he's mentored, remembers teaching them about power, responsibility, and the weight of authority. "Officer Rankin," he says quietly, "I want to be clear that I'm complying under protest. This stop is unwarranted, and your escalation is unnecessary." The door opens with a soft click. Richardson unfolds his 6'2" frame from the car, dignity intact. The evening air carries the scent of cherry blossoms from nearby trees, a reminder that even in moments of injustice, beauty persists. 4 officers, 4 body cameras, 4 different angles capturing what happens next. Every movement, every word, recorded for a posterity none of them yet understand. History doesn't always announce itself with grand gestures. Sometimes it arrives in quiet moments on ordinary streets, wearing a pressed suit and carrying a Pentagon ID that nobody bothered to read. Standing beside his Lexus, Colonel Marcus Richardson feels the weight of his service record in a way he hasn't in years. The stars overhead remind him of nights in Kandahar, where he earned his first Silver Star. Not that these officers would believe that either. 27 years of service flash through his mind as Officer Rankin roughly pats him down. West Point, class of '96, where he graduated 3rd in his class. His father, Master Sergeant James Richardson, had pinned on his bars that day, both men fighting back tears. "Make it count," his father had whispered. "Every day, make it count." He'd kept that promise through 3 combat tours, 12 Pentagon assignments, and countless classified operations that would never appear in any public record. The kind of missions where success meant nobody ever knew you were there. "Spread your legs," Davidson barks, interrupting Richardson's thoughts. "Wider." Richardson complies, mind drifting to a similar night in Moscow, 2008. He'd been coordinating a delicate extraction operation when Russian police stopped his diplomatic vehicle. That night, a single phone call to the embassy had cleared everything. Up in minutes. Tonight feels different, more personal, more fundamental. His team at the Pentagon would barely recognize him in this moment. Colonel Richardson, the man who'd orchestrated the evacuation of 300 civilians from a collapsing Baghdad suburb. The strategist who'd helped design the military's current crisis response protocols. The officer who'd earned the Defense Distinguished Service Medal for actions that would remain classified until 2055. "Got anything in your pockets that's gonna stick me?" Rankin demands, continuing his search. "No, sir," Richardson responds, the "sir" automatic after decades of military courtesy. "Just my phone, wallet and keys, as I informed you earlier." The phone. His mind shifts to the contacts stored within it. General Sarah Hayes, current Deputy Chief of Operations, who'd served with him in Afghanistan. Admiral Michael Chen, whose daughter had interned under Richardson's mentorship last summer. Secretary James Morrison, who'd personally requested Richardson's presence at last month's National Security Council briefing. Names that carry weight in marble hallways. Names these officers don't recognize but soon will. A young woman across the street has stopped to record the scene on her phone. Richardson notices but doesn't react. He's thinking of his own daughter now, Elena, 3rd-year resident at Walter Reed. The conversations they've had about moments like this, about maintaining dignity in the face of prejudice. "Your uniform was this country's promise to you, Dad," she'd said once. "Make them keep it." His son, Marcus Jr., a major serving in the 82nd Airborne, would understand this moment too well. They'd talked about it during his last leave. How success doesn't shield you, how achievements don't protect you, how some people will only ever see what they expect to see. Officer Davidson shifts impatiently. "Nothing on him," he reports, sounding almost disappointed. Richardson stands straight again, adjusting his suit jacket with habitual precision. The same precision he'd learned at Command and Staff College, where he'd later return as an instructor, where he'd taught hundreds of young officers about leadership, about responsibility, about the sacred trust between those who serve and those they protect. The K-9 unit circles his car now, the dog showing no interest. There's nothing to find. Richardson watches calmly, thinking of the citation on his office wall at the Pentagon. For exceptional service in advancing national security interests. The irony isn't lost on him. His security clearance level would make these officers' heads spin. The operations he's overseen, the decisions he's influenced, the direct line he has to people who shape global policy. None of it matters on this street corner. Not yet. You want to tell us again about being a colonel? Rankin sneers, holding up Richardson's wallet. Because this military ID looks fake as hell to me. Richardson meets his eyes steadily. In that gaze lies every mission briefing, every crisis managed, every life or death decision that's brought him to this moment. He thinks of the award ceremony last month, where the Secretary of Defense had personally thanked him for 27 years of exemplary service. "Officer Rankin," he says quietly, "you're about to have a very educational evening." The dashboard camera captures it all. The dignity, the composure, the subtle shift in power that none of the officers have yet recognized. In the distance, a church bell strikes 8 times. The night is still young, and Colonel Marcus Richardson has made a career of turning tactical situations to his advantage. The handcuffs click shut around Colonel Richardson's wrists with a finality that echoes in the evening air. Officer Rankin makes them deliberately tight, a small power play that speaks volumes about the man behind the badge. "You have the right to remain silent," Rankin begins, reciting Miranda rights with mechanical indifference. More neighbors have gathered now, phones raised like silent witnesses. Richardson catches fragments of their whispered conversations. "That's Colonel Richardson, Pentagon, lives in the Victorian on Maple. Can't believe this." "I know my rights, Officer Rankin," Richardson says calmly. "I also know you have. No probable cause for this arrest. Your body camera is recording all of this, correct?" Davidson steps forward, face flushed with irritation. "You resisting arrest now?" "Not at all," Richardson replies. "I'm simply establishing a clear record of these proceedings." His voice carries the same steady authority he uses in Pentagon briefings. "For the record, please state the charges." The officers exchange glances. Rankin's jaw tightens. "Suspicious behavior, possible false identification, resisting a lawful investigation." Richardson allows himself a small smile, one that future review boards will analyze frame by frame. "I see. And the initial probable cause for the traffic stop?" "You crossed the double yellow line," Rankin snaps, but there's a flicker of uncertainty. In his eyes, "The dashboard camera will confirm that I did not," Richardson states, "just as your body cameras are confirming everything happening now." A third officer, Murphy, shifts uncomfortably. He's older than the others, maybe sensing how quickly this situation is unraveling, but he says nothing, and his silence makes him complicit. Richardson feels the bite of the cuffs as Rankin guides him toward the patrol car. He moves with military precision, head high, steps measured. A lifetime of command presence doesn't evaporate in the face of injustice. The K9 unit has completed its fruitless circuit of his car. The dog sits quietly, uninterested, a detail that will feature prominently in future reports. Officer Chen, the K9 handler and the 4th officer on scene, writes something in his notebook, avoiding eye contact. "In the car," Rankin orders, pushing Richardson's head down. Richardson pauses. "Officer Rankin, I want to be clear that I'm documenting bruising from these unnecessarily tight handcuffs. I'm also noting the time, 8:17 p.m., and the fact that you've provided no legitimate reason for this escalation." "Just shut up and get in," Davidson snaps, but there's a new edge to his voice. Fear, maybe, or the first inklings of doubt. The back seat of the patrol car smells of industrial cleaner and stale coffee. Richardson sits upright, ignoring the discomfort of his positioned arms. Through the window he can see his Lexus, hazard lights still blinking steadily. Inside it, his phone rests in the center console. "I'll need to make a phone call," he announces calmly. Rankin laughs from the front seat. "Yeah, sure. You can call whoever you want, after processing." "That would be unwise," Richardson replies, His tone makes Davidson turn around, searching his face. "You threatening us?" Davidson demands. "Not at all. I'm advising you of an opportunity to correct a serious error in judgment before it becomes a career-defining mistake." Murphy rubs his face, the gesture of a man beginning to realize he's stepped into something bigger than anticipated. Chen stands by his K9 unit, radioing something in a low voice. "One phone call," Richardson continues. "Now, before this escalates beyond your ability to control the narrative." "You don't give orders here," Rankin says, but he's watching Richardson, in the rearview mirror, studying him with new intensity. "No," Richardson agrees, "I don't. But in approximately 30 minutes, you're going to wish you had listened to this one piece of advice." A new patrol car pulls up, lights flashing, the shift sergeant by the stripes. Richardson allows himself a small nod. Right on schedule. Every minute of this incident is being documented, every word recorded, every action preserved for the investigations to come. "Last chance," he offers quietly. "One phone call. Or we can all wait for the chain of command to discover this situation through less official channels." The sergeant approaches, taking in the scene. 4 officers, multiple patrol cars, a K9 unit, all for a well-dressed man in handcuffs, who displays perfect military bearing even in custody. "What's the situation here?" the sergeant asks, and in his tone, Richardson hears the first threads of this evening's fabric beginning to unravel. Sergeant Mike Torres has seen enough in his 18 years on the force to know when something isn't right. The scene before him sets off every alarm bell in his veteran's instincts. Too many units, too much tension, and a suspect who carries himself like someone used to wearing stars on his shoulders. "He claims to be a Pentagon colonel," Rankin explains, the doubt heavy in his voice. "I am a Pentagon colonel," Richardson corrects calmly, "and I need to make a phone call." Torres studies the military ID that Rankin dismissed. The holographic security features, the clearance level indicators, the Pentagon authentication markers, all genuine. His stomach tightens. "Uncuff him," Torres orders. "Sarge, he could be—" Davidson starts. "Uncuff him now." Torres's voice leaves no room for argument. "And get his phone from the car." The handcuffs come off. Richardson rotates his wrists, slowly, cataloguing the marks. Chen returns with his phone, handling it like it might explode. "Thank you, Sergeant Torres," Richardson says, checking the time. "Now I recommend you all maintain your composure during this call. It's going to be on speaker, and everything said will matter a great deal in the coming hours." His fingers move across the phone's screen with practiced efficiency. A number, dialed from memory, not contacts. The speaker crackles to life, and a crisp voice answers on the second ring. "Secure line, General Hayes speaking." The effect is immediate. Torres straightens instinctively. Davidson's face drains of color. Even. Rankin takes an involuntary step back. "Sarah, it's Marcus Richardson." His voice carries the weight of decades of shared service. "I apologize for disturbing you at this hour, but I'm currently being detained by Alexandria PD under questionable circumstances. I thought you should be aware given tomorrow's briefing." A brief silence. When Hayes speaks again, her voice could freeze flame. "Could you clarify questionable circumstances, Marcus?" 4 officers, K9 unit, unauthorized search, tight cuffs, dismissed credentials. The usual profile. Richardson's tone remains professional, but the implications hang heavy. In the air. "I'm on speaker with them now." "I see." 2 syllables that promise consequences. "Officers, this is General Sarah Hayes, Deputy Chief of Operations at the Pentagon. Colonel Richardson is due to brief the Joint Chiefs tomorrow morning on matters of national security. He has a higher security clearance than most members of Congress. Would anyone care to explain why he's being detained?" Rankin opens his mouth, closes it. Murphy finds sudden interest in his boots. Chen has backed away to his K9 unit. "He crossed a double yellow line," Davidson offers weakly. "The dashboard camera will show that I did not," Richardson adds, quietly. "Sergeant, your name and badge number," Hayes demands. "Sergeant Michael Torres, ma'am." Badge 8742. Sergeant Torres, I'm going to make this very simple. Colonel Richardson is to be released immediately. Within the hour, I expect a full report on my desk detailing every officer involved, every action taken, and every word spoken. I'm also alerting the Chief of Police and the Mayor's office. Do you understand? Yes, ma'am. Torres's response is pure military reflex. And officers. Hayes continues. The Pentagon takes a rather dim view of racial profiling, especially when it targets senior military personnel. Colonel Richardson's treatment will be reviewed at the highest levels. Expect significant scrutiny of your records and previous arrests. Richardson watches the officers process this new reality. Their world of unchecked authority is crumbling in real time. One more thing, Hayes adds. Colonel Richardson, do you require any medical attention for those wrist marks I'm sure you have? No, General, but they've been documented. Excellent. Sergeant Torres, ensure this incident report reaches Chief Matthews within the hour. And officers, consider your careers under review. The call ends. Richardson pockets his phone with deliberate calm, smooths his jacket, and surveys the gathered officers. Now, he says quietly, shall we discuss how this evening could have gone differently? The Pentagon's command center never sleeps. At 8:45 p.m., General Sarah Hayes strides through its reinforced doors, her heels clicking against polished floors. Dozens of screens flicker with global intelligence feeds, but tonight, her focus is decidedly local. Get me Chief Matthews of Alexandria PD, she orders, settling into her command station. And someone wake up the JAG office. Lieutenant Colonel James Wright, her aide, is already moving. Ma'am, the Secretary's office is asking for an update on Colonel Richardson's status. Of course they are. Hayes allows herself a grim smile. Because this is exactly what we need 12 hours before his briefing on Chinese cyber operations. The command center erupts into controlled chaos. Phones ring, keyboards click, and military precision meets bureaucratic machinery. On one screen, traffic camera footage from King Street begins playing, evidence that will soon demolish Officer Rankin's claims about crossed lines. Chief Matthews on line 1, a communications officer announces. Hayes takes the call. Chief, General Hayes, we have a situation involving one of my senior officers that requires immediate attention. The police chief's voice carries a mix of concern and dawning recognition. This is about Colonel Richardson, isn't it? I just got a preliminary report. Then you know we have a problem. 4 of your officers decided to profile and detain a senior Pentagon official with top-secret clearance. I need this handled, and I need it handled now. In the background, Wright coordinates with the JAG office. Legal officers are already reviewing Richardson's service record, preparing documentation that will turn this incident into a case study in police accountability. I've got Admiral Chen asking for updates. Another aide reports. Colonel Richardson was supposed to brief his cybersecurity team at ZO 700. Hayes nods, watching as more screens fill with information. Richardson's service record spans 5 monitors, classified operations, commendations, security clearances that most people don't know exist. Send everything to the mayor's office, she instructs, and get me the FBI's Civil Rights Division. This stops tonight. The police chief's voice crackles through the speaker. General, I assure you we're taking this seriously. I've ordered Internal Affairs to begin immediate interviews. Good, because in about 30 minutes this story hits social media. In an hour, it reaches national news. By morning, you'll have reporters asking why 4 of your officers thought they could handcuff a decorated combat veteran and Pentagon colonel without consequences. Satellite imagery appears on the main screen, a real-time view of the incident scene. More patrol cars arriving, news vans beginning to gather. The ripples are spreading. Colonel Wright, Hayes calls out. Contact our media liaison. I want a statement ready, but hold for my authorization. And someone get me Richardson's current location. Still on scene, ma'am, an analyst reports. Sergeant Torres is personally overseeing his release. Hayes turns back to her call with the chief. Matthews, let me be crystal clear. By 0900 tomorrow, I want those officers on administrative leave. I want every second of body camera footage preserved. And I want a personal apology from you to Colonel Richardson. Understood, General. And, Chief, this isn't just about tonight. We both know these officers have probably done this before. I want their complete arrest records, racial demographics included. The Pentagon's Civil Rights Office will be very interested in establishing patterns. The command center's tempo increases. More senior officers arrive, drawn by the implications of this incident. Admiral Chen's face appears on a video call screen, his expression stern. Sarah, he greets Hayes, tell me we're not letting this slide. Not a chance, Michael. Your cyber briefing might need a new presenter tomorrow, though. The briefing can wait. Make them understand what they've stepped in. Hayes surveys the room, where dozens of military professionals are mobilizing in defense of one of their own. This is how change happens. Not just through laws and policies, but through power responding to abuse of power. Trust me, she replies, they're about to learn. A new alert flashes. The first social media video has gone viral. The image is clear. Colonel Richardson, handcuffed, maintaining perfect military bearing while surrounded by officers who failed to recognize what was right in front of them. Time to escalate, Hayes announces to the room. Show them what the full weight of Pentagon command can do when properly motivated. The Alexandria Police Department erupts into controlled panic as Chief Matthews' orders ripple through the chain of command. Lights snap on in darkened offices. Off-duty officers are called in. Internal affairs investigators abandon their dinners, summoned by the gravity of what's unfolding. Captain Lisa Rodriguez, head of Internal Affairs, strides through the precinct doors at 9:15 p.m., her face a mask of contained fury. Someone tell me how 4 of our officers managed to arrest a Pentagon colonel without checking his credentials. The shift supervisor, Lieutenant Garcia, meets her with a stack of preliminary reports. Body camera footage is being uploaded now, but it's bad, Lisa. Really bad. In the break room, officers Rankin and Davidson sit in stunned silence, their swagger replaced by growing dread. Officer Murphy paces, muttering about retirement dates. Officer Chen stares at his phone, watching the social media storm explode. The Pentagon, Rankin says for the 10th time. Of all the people we could have profiled. Rodriguez appears. In the doorway. My office, all of you now. They file in like chastened schoolchildren. The wall-mounted TV shows a news crew setting up outside the precinct. Their simple traffic stop is becoming national news in real time. Let's review, Rodriguez begins, her voice arctic. You conducted a stop with no probable cause. You dismissed valid military identification. You escalated without justification. You handcuffed a senior Pentagon official. Did I miss anything? He was arrogant. Davidson starts. He was right, Rodriguez cuts him off. Every second of this is on camera. Every word you spoke, every action you took, every civil rights violation you committed, all preserved for the Pentagon's lawyers to review. She spreads their personnel files across her desk. And now we're going to go through your entire arrest history. Every traffic stop, every search, every detention. The Pentagon isn't just looking at tonight. They're going to establish a pattern. Murphy sinks into a chair. What's going to happen to us? Best case, administrative leave pending investigation, mandatory retraining, and permanent marks in your files. Worst case? Rodriguez lets the question hang. The Pentagon doesn't take kindly to having their senior officers handcuffed on false pretenses. The precinct's front desk phones are ringing constantly now. Reporters, civil rights organizations, veterans groups, all demanding statements. The department's public information officer is already drafting apologies. Chief Matthews is meeting with the mayor, Rodriguez continues. The FBI Civil Rights Division has been notified. And to top it off, Colonel Richardson was scheduled to brief the Joint Chiefs tomorrow on classified operations. You've managed to interfere with national security procedures. Chen raises his hand tentatively. Can we apologize? Try to make it right? Oh, you'll apologize, Rodriguez assures him. But this isn't going away with a simple sorry. This incident is going to change department policies, starting with a complete review of our traffic stop procedures and racial bias training. Outside her office, more internal affairs investigators arrive. They're setting up in the conference room, preparing for a long night of review. Every complaint ever filed against these officers is being pulled from archives. Every statistical anomaly in their arrest records will be scrutinized. Rankin's phone buzzes, his police union representative, probably already overwhelmed with media calls. Davidson stares at his badge, perhaps seeing it in a new light. Murphy's retirement dreams are evaporating in real time. The Pentagon has requested all of your personnel files, Rodriguez informs them. They're particularly interested in any previous complaints about racial profiling or excessive force. Anyone want to tell me what they're going to find? The silence is deafening. Get comfortable, she continues, because this is just the beginning. Internal Affairs will take your official statements tonight. Tomorrow you'll face questions from the FBI. The Pentagon Civil Rights Office wants interviews, and Colonel Richardson's military lawyers are probably already preparing their own investigation. A knock at the door. Another stack of files arrives. Civilian complaints, use of force reports, dash cam archives. The full weight of their careers laid bare for examination. One more thing, Rodriguez adds, her voice deadly quiet. If any of you deleted text messages, social media posts, or any other evidence tonight, tell me now, because the Pentagon's cyber team will find it, and destruction of evidence will end more than just your careers. By 10 p.m., the video has gone viral. A black Pentagon colonel handcuffed on a quiet Alexandria street, maintaining military bearing while officers mock his credentials. The imagery is powerful, the symbolism undeniable. Every major network is running with the story. Breaking tonight, the CNN anchor begins, a disturbing incident in Virginia where police officers arrested a high-ranking Pentagon official in what appears to be a case of racial profiling. Colonel Marcus Richardson, whose military service spans nearly 3 decades. Social media explodes with outrage. Veterans groups share Richardson's service record, his commendations, his role in classified operations now becoming public. Military forums light up with personal accounts. Served under Colonel Richardson in '08, one post reads, most respected officer I've ever known. These cops had no idea who they were messing with. Outside the Alexandria Police Department, reporters gather in growing numbers. Sarah Chen from the Washington Post stands before a camera, microphone in hand. Sources inside the Pentagon confirm that Colonel Richardson was scheduled to brief the Joint Chiefs tomorrow on classified cyber operations. Instead, he spent his evening handcuffed in a police car, his distinguished military career dismissed by officers who failed to verify his credentials. The cell phone footage plays on repeat across screens nationwide. Each viewing reveals new details, the unnecessarily tight handcuffs, the dismissive tone, the obvious prejudice. But it also shows Richardson's dignity, his calm assertion of rights, his strategic patience. Military channels buzz with encrypted messages. Veterans organizations mobilize rapid responses. The American Legion issues a scathing statement. When a decorated colonel can't drive home without facing unwarranted harassment, we must confront the reality of systemic bias in law enforcement. Inside the Pentagon's media center, phones ring constantly. News organizations demand statements, background information, confirmation of Richardson's role. The carefully crafted response emphasizes his service record, his current responsibilities, and the Pentagon's unwavering support. Twitter trends emerge. Why Colonel Richardson, why serving while black, na Pentagon Colonel. Each hashtag carries thousands of stories, Other veterans sharing similar experiences, civilians expressing outrage, military personnel offering support. This is what bias looks like, retired General Michael Thompson tells MSNBC. Colonel Richardson has briefed presidents. He's coordinated national security operations. Yet tonight, he was treated like a criminal because some officers couldn't believe a black man belonged in that neighborhood. Local residents post their own accounts. Colin Richardson helped my son prepare for West Point, one neighbor writes. He's the most honorable man I know. These officers didn't just make a mistake. They revealed their prejudices. The Alexandria government's social media accounts are overwhelmed. Citizens demand action, accountability, reform. Each post generates thousands of responses. Each response fuels further coverage. Military blogs piece together Richardson's career from public records. His leadership during crisis situations, his role in modernizing Pentagon operations, his mentorship of younger officers. The contrast between his service and his treatment becomes starker with each revelation. The question isn't just about tonight, a civil rights attorney tells Fox News. It's about how many other Marcus Richardsons are out there. How many other decorated veterans face this treatment without the power to make that one phone call? By midnight, international media picks up the story. BBC leads with U.S. police detain senior Pentagon official in racial profiling incident. Le Monde questions American police practices. Al Jazeera examines the intersection of military service and racial bias. The 4 officers' names leak online. Their previous arrests face public scrutiny. Activists compile statistics, finding patterns in their traffic stops. Their professional histories become part of a larger narrative about police accountability. This isn't going away, a police union representative admits to reporters. The Pentagon doesn't forget. The military community doesn't forget. And now, America won't forget. The conference room at FBI headquarters becomes command central by 1 a.m. Special Agent Diana Martinez leads the Civil Rights Division's investigation, spreading evidence across a digital whiteboard. Body camera footage plays on multiple screens, each angle telling its own damning story. Pull up Officer Rankin's arrest history, Martinez directs her team. I want demographic breakdowns for every traffic stop in the past 5 years. The data appears in crisp graphs and charts. The pattern emerges quickly, a statistical anomaly, impossible to ignore. African American drivers, particularly in upscale vehicles, stopped at rates far exceeding the population average. Got something? Agent Thompson calls out. Social media scrubs from Davidson's accounts, multiple posts showing racial bias, recently deleted but archived in our system. Martinez nods grimly. Document everything. The Pentagon's lawyers will want this for the civil rights investigation. At the Alexandria Police Department, Internal Affairs works through the night. Captain Rodriguez interviews each officer separately, their stories beginning to unravel under careful questioning. Walk me through your justification for the stop. Again, she tells Rankin, video cameras recording every word. I thought I saw him cross the double yellow. Traffic cameras show he didn't, Rodriguez interrupts. Try again. Rankin shifts uncomfortably. He seemed out of place in that neighborhood. A black man in a Lexus seemed out of place? Rodriguez lets the question hang. The same neighborhood where he's lived for 15 years, where he's served on the community board. In another room, Officer Murphy breaks first. We knew it was wrong, he admits to investigators. But Rankin and Davidson, they have this way of operating. You either go along or... The FBI's forensic team analyzes the officers' phones, recovering deleted messages. A pattern of casual racism emerges, jokes about patrol quotas in affluent neighborhoods, targeted harassment disguised as routine enforcement. Pentagon investigators arrive at 2 a.m., led by Major Sarah Chen from the Judge Advocate General's office. They bring their own evidence. Satellite imagery showing Richardson's car never crossed any lines, records of his security clearance level, documentation of his scheduled briefings. Colonel Richardson's rights were violated, Chen informs Chief Matthews. But more importantly, these officers compromised national security procedures by preventing him from preparing for tomorrow's Joint Chiefs briefing. The investigation expands. More victims come forward, sharing similar stories of stops by the same officers. Civil rights organizations compile testimonies. Veterans groups provide statements about Richardson's character and service. In the evidence room, technicians analyze the body camera footage frame by frame. Every dismissive gesture, every ignored protest, every violation of department policy documented in high definition. Check this timestamp. Agent Martinez points to a screen. Davidson reaches for his weapon when Richardson mentions his Pentagon credentials. No threat, no justification, pure intimidation. The officers' union representatives arrive, but even they seem subdued. The evidence is overwhelming, the pattern undeniable. This isn't just about one incident, it's about years of unchecked behavior finally exposed. We've got Commander Hayes from the Pentagon on line 1, an aide announces. She wants updates on any evidence of previous misconduct. Martinez takes the call. General, we're finding a clear pattern of discriminatory enforcement. These officers regularly targeted minority drivers in affluent areas, using minor traffic violations as pretext. Document everything, Hayes orders. This isn't just about Colonel Richardson anymore. This is about every person these officers wrongly targeted, every career they impacted, every life they disrupted. By dawn, the investigation fills multiple databases, witness statements, statistical analyses, forensic evidence, all pointing to a systematic abuse of power. The 4 officers' careers aren't just ending, they're becoming a case study in how privilege and prejudice corrupt law enforcement. One more thing, Martinez tells her team as they compile preliminary reports. Colonel Richardson's treatment may have been wrong, but his response was a masterclass in creating change. He knew exactly what evidence to preserve, what questions to ask, what procedures to invoke. Because of his actions, we can prove not just what happened to him, but what's been happening to others all along. Back in his home office at 3 a.m., Colonel Richardson sits before a wall of memories. Combat photographs, diplomatic citations, and classified operation commendations tell the story of a career spent breaking barriers. His fingers trace the frame of a particular photo, his father in Vietnam, standing proud in sergeant's stripes. "You were right, Dad," he whispers. "Always document, always stay professional, always make them face their own prejudice." His phone buzzes with messages of support from the highest levels of military command. Admiral Chen, you taught them a lesson they'll never forget. General Hayes, your restraint was a weapon they never saw coming. Richardson opens a leather-bound journal, its pages filled with decades of similar incidents, each entry methodically documented, each encounter turned into a teaching moment. He'd started the practice at West Point, where being one of 12 black cadets in his class meant every action was scrutinized. 2003 Baghdad checkpoint, he reads. Local police refused to acknowledge U.S. military credentials, maintained composure, contacted command, resulted in new cross-cultural training protocols. 2008 Moscow diplomatic reception. Russian security questioned my status as senior military attaché, calmly presented credentials. Incident led to revised international protocol training. 2015 Pentagon parking security. New guard refused. Entry despite credentials. Recorded interaction. Guard received retraining. Now heads diversity initiatives. His son, Marcus Jr., calls from his deployment. Dad, I saw the video. The younger Richardson says, you handled it exactly like you taught me. Your grandfather's lessons. Richardson replies, he faced worse in the 60s. Came home from Vietnam to segregated units. But he always said, make them live up to their own standards. Richardson pulls up the dashcam footage from tonight, studying it with the same analytical precision he brings to military operations. Each frame reveals something, The officers, assumptions, their escalating aggression, their dismissal of evidence that contradicted their biases. A photo on his desk shows him with President Obama in the Situation Room during a critical operation. Next to it, a more recent image, briefing the current administration on cybersecurity threats. In both, he stands with the same quiet authority he displayed tonight. His West Point ring catches the light as he makes notes. He's already preparing his testimony for the inevitable hearings, turning this incident into another teaching moment. The next generation of officers will study this case, learn from how he transformed humiliation into reform. Elena, his daughter, sends a text. "Mom and I are proud of you, Dad. You showed them what real authority looks like." He thinks of his mother, who'd worked as a school teacher in Alabama during desegregation. She'd taught him that dignity was a form of resistance, that maintaining composure in the face of prejudice could be more powerful than any confrontation. The night deepens as Richardson reviews his military records, operations in 40 countries, coordination with intelligence agencies, high-level security clearances, all dismissed by officers who couldn't see past their own preconceptions. A framed quote on his wall catches his eye, words from his first commanding officer: "Leadership isn't about the power you wield, but the change you create." He'd lived by that principle, mentoring hundreds of young officers, especially minorities who faced similar challenges, teaching them to document everything, to maintain professional bearing, to use the system's own rules as tools for transformation. His doorbell rings, General Hayes making a personal visit. She's known him since they were captains together, witnessed his rise through the ranks, seen how he turned obstacles into opportunities. "The Secretary wants your input on the reforms this will spark," she tells him. "Your handling of this situation. It's going to change things, Marcus." Richardson nods, thinking of all the others who didn't have the power to make that one phone call, the ones whose stories didn't go viral, whose dignity was violated without consequence. "Then let's make it count," he replies, pulling out his notes. "Not just for me, but for everyone who's faced this kind of treatment. Every veteran disrespected, every professional doubted, every citizen whose rights were violated because someone decided they didn't belong." Together, they begin drafting recommendations for police reform, turning one dark evening into a catalyst for lasting change. Because that's what leaders do. They transform personal trials into institutional transformation. Dawn breaks over Alexandria with a new energy. The streets around Colonel Richardson's neighborhood fill with supporters, veterans in uniform, community members with signs, military families standing in solidarity. Local news crews capture the scene as hundreds gather for an impromptu rally. Reverend Michael Thomas, a retired Air Force chaplain, addresses the crowd from the steps of Mount Vernon Baptist Church. What happened here last night wasn't just about Colonel Richardson. It was about every person who's ever been told they don't belong in their own community. The mayor arrives, flanked by city council members. She looks tired after a night of crisis management, but her voice carries conviction. "Alexandria is better than what we saw in those videos. We will make this right." Richardson's neighbors emerge with coffee and breakfast for the gathered crowd. Sharon Williams, who's lived next door for 12 years, speaks to reporters. "Colonel Richardson has been our rock. When my son was struggling with PTSD after Afghanistan, the colonel spent countless hours counseling him." That's who these officers handcuffed last night. Military vehicles arrive from the Pentagon, bringing more supporters. A group of West Point cadets, granted special permission to attend, stand at attention in their dress grays. They represent the future Richardson has helped shape, a more diverse, more equitable military leadership. "The colonel taught us at the academy," Cadet Sarah Chen explains to reporters. "He always said, 'Your character speaks louder than your rank.' Last night he proved it." Local business owners join the gathering. James Martinez, owner of the Corner Cafe, recounts how Richardson helped him navigate VA benefits after his service in Iraq. He didn't know me, but he spent hours making calls, cutting through red tape. That's the man they profiled. The crowd grows as morning commuters stop to join. Pentagon employees, defense contractors, government workers, all adding their voices to the chorus demanding change. Signs appear: respect our veterans alongside Black Lives Matter, unity in shared purpose. Social media amplifies the message. Local community groups mobilize, organizing town halls, demanding oversight committees. The Alexandria Citizens Review Board announces an emergency session. This isn't just a moment, Councilmember Davis tells the crowd. This is a movement. Colonel Richardson showed us how to turn injustice into institutional change. By mid-morning, the gathering has become a peaceful demonstration of community strength. Veterans share stories of their own encounters with bias. Citizens describe similar traffic stops. Each testimony adds weight to the demand for reform. A group of police officers arrives, not the ones from last night, but others from the department. They come in civilian clothes off duty, led by an African American. "Sergeant, we're here because what happened was wrong," he announces, "because wearing a badge means serving everyone equally." The crowd parts as Colonel Richardson emerges from his house. He wears his full-dress uniform, ribbons and medals catching the morning light. The cadets snap to attention. Veterans salute. Civilians stand in respectful silence. "Thank you all," he begins, his voice carrying across the hushed gathering. "But let's ensure this energy creates lasting change, not just for those with stars on their shoulders or medals on their chest, but for every citizen who deserves equal treatment under the law." Community organizers circulate with clipboards, gathering signatures for police oversight initiatives. Veterans groups collect testimonies of similar incidents. Lawyers offer pro bono services to others affected by discriminatory policing. Richardson's presence transforms the anger into purpose, the outrage into organization. He speaks briefly with each group, turning supporters into stakeholders in the fight for reform. As morning becomes afternoon, the gathering evolves into an impromptu community forum. Town officials meet with community leaders. Police representatives engage with citizens. The painful incident begins its transformation into a catalyst for change. "This," Richardson tells a young reporter, "is how America is supposed to work, not through confrontation, but through conversion. Not through force, but through unity." Inside the Alexandria Police Department's main conference room, Chief Matthews faces a sea of officers during an emergency all-hands meeting. The room buzzes with tension as body camera footage from the Richardson incident plays on the wall screen. "This stops today," Matthews announces, his voice carrying 2 decades of authority. "What you're watching isn't just a PR nightmare, it's a complete failure of our core mission to protect and serve." The footage pauses on Richardson's military ID being dismissed. Captain Rodriguez steps forward with a stack of new departmental directives. "Effective immediately, we're implementing comprehensive reforms," she declares. "Every traffic stop will require documented probable cause before initiation. Body cameras will be reviewed weekly, not monthly, and any dismissal of official credentials will trigger automatic supervisory review." Veterans on the force shift uncomfortably, their own military service lending weight to the changes. Sergeant Torres, who witnessed the incident's end, shares his perspective. "I served under officers like Colonel Richardson," he tells the room, "men and women who earned their authority through character, not just rank. Last night, we failed to show that same professional courtesy." The new policies appear on screens around the room. Mandatory cultural competency training, enhanced community oversight, regular review of stop demographics, real consequences for pattern violations. "We're also establishing direct lines of communication with military installations," Matthews continues. "Fort Belvoir, Pentagon, Quantico, their personnel deserve our respect regardless of race." A young officer raises her hand. "Sir, what about the officers involved?" "Officer Rankin has been terminated," Matthews states flatly. Davidson and Murphy are suspended pending further investigation. Officer Chen has requested reassignment to community relations. The room absorbs this news as Rodriguez distributes more documents. These are the new traffic stop protocols. Every officer will be recertified, no exceptions. Outside, construction crews are already modifying patrol cars. New cameras, better angles, automated systems that require documented cause before lights can be activated. Technology enforcing accountability. We've also reviewed 5 years of traffic stop data, Rodriguez adds. The patterns we found are unacceptable. Starting today, quarterly audits will identify any demographic disparities. The shift supervisors receive tablets containing updated guidance. Every stop must now include clear radio communication of probable cause. Every credential check must be logged and verified. Every interaction recorded from multiple angles. The Pentagon's Civil Rights Office has offered to assist with training, Matthews announces. Colonel Richardson himself has agreed to participate, turning this incident into a teaching opportunity. Photos appear on screen. Richardson in combat zones at diplomatic functions, receiving military honors. The contrast with his treatment becomes starker with each image. This is the caliber of person our officers handcuffed, Rodriguez emphasizes, not because of any violation, but because of assumptions. Those assumptions end now. A new organizational chart shows expanded internal affairs authority, increased civilian oversight, and direct lines to community leaders. The department's structure itself is being reformed to prevent future incidents. We're also establishing a Veterans Liaison Office, Matthews continues. Alexandria has one of the highest concentrations of military personnel in the country. They deserve better than what happened last night. The reforms extend beyond policies. Physical changes to the department include new training facilities, community meeting spaces, and transparent review processes. The walls themselves will remind officers of their duty to serve everyone equally. Some of you are wondering about cost. Rodriguez addresses the unspoken question. The mayor's office has approved emergency funding because the cost of not changing is far higher. The meeting concludes with a mandatory signing of new ethical guidelines. Each officer must acknowledge the changes, commit to the reforms, and accept enhanced accountability measures. One more thing, Matthews adds, as officers prepare to leave. Colonel Richardson didn't just expose our failures. He showed us how to be better. Remember that the next time you're tempted to make assumptions about who belongs where. Outside the conference room, teams begin installing new computer systems. Every traffic stop will now be logged with GPS coordinates, demographic data, and probable cause. Technology turning policy into practice, reform into reality. Officer James Rankin sits alone in his living room, staring at the termination papers spread across his coffee table. His badge and service weapon are gone, collected during a brief, tense meeting with Internal Affairs. On TV, his face appears in yet another news segment about the incident. 17 years, he mutters to himself, gone in one night. His phone buzzes constantly. Reporters, former colleagues, police union representatives. Each message drives home the magnitude of his mistake. His attorney's words echo in his mind. This isn't just a termination. This is a career-ending event. Across town, Officer Davidson faces his own reality check during his suspension hearing. Captain Rodriguez reads from a thick file of civilian complaints, each one building a damning pattern. 15 traffic stops last month, she notes. All minority drivers, all in affluent neighborhoods, all with questionable probable cause. Care to explain the pattern? Davidson's union representative shifts uncomfortably. The evidence is overwhelming, the statistics undeniable. Years of unchecked bias laid bare in cold, hard data. Officer Murphy, the eldest of the four, cleans out his locker under supervision. Retirement had been 3 years away. Now, facing Suspension and investigation. He's filing for early retirement. His pension will be reduced, a constant reminder of that fateful traffic stop. "I should have spoken up," he tells his wife later. "I saw what was happening and stayed quiet. That makes me just as guilty." Officer Chen takes a different path. In a written statement to Internal Affairs, he admits to witnessing similar incidents before, acknowledging his complicity through silence. His request for transfer to community relations comes with a commitment to reform. "I want to be part of the solution," he tells Rodriguez during his review. "That night showed me what we've become, and I can't be part of that anymore. The consequences ripple beyond their careers." Rankin's teenage daughter faces questions at school about her father's actions. Davidson's mortgage application is denied. No income, no prospects. Murphy's retirement community whispers about the disgraced officer in their midst. Their police union, initially defensive, distances itself after reviewing the evidence. "We defend officers who make honest mistakes," their representative states. This was something else entirely. Local prosecutors begin reviewing every arrest these officers made. Public defenders flood the department with appeals. Years of cases now carry the taint of potential bias, requiring review and possible reversal. Rankin attempts to apply to neighboring departments, only to find his name blacklisted. The Pentagon's involvement ensures that his actions will follow him anywhere he seeks law enforcement work. "You didn't just embarrass yourself," Chief Matthews tells him during his final interview. "You embarrassed every officer who wears this uniform. You violated everything we're supposed to stand for." Davidson's body camera footage becomes required viewing in police academies across the country. Future officers will study his escalating aggression, his dismissal of credentials, his abuse of authority, learning what not to do. Murphy, facing mounting legal fees, starts selling his police memorabilia. Awards and commendations mean little, now tarnished by association with that night's events. Chen's cooperation with investigators earns him a chance at redemption, but with conditions. His new role in community relations will require him to share his perspective, to help other officers recognize and correct their biases. The four men meet one last time, called in to receive official copies of the investigation findings. They sit in separate corners of the waiting room, former partners now divided by shame and consequence. Colonel Richardson has declined to file personal charges, Rodriguez informs them. He says the departmental and professional consequences are sufficient. That's more mercy than you showed him. Their final exit from the police department is captured by waiting news cameras. Four men who started their shifts thinking they were untouchable, ending their careers as cautionary tales. "Remember this," Rodriguez tells each of them. "You're not losing your jobs because of one traffic stop. You're losing them because that traffic stop finally exposed who you really are." 1 week after the incident, Colonel Richardson stands at a Pentagon podium, addressing a room full of military leaders, law enforcement officials, and civil rights advocates. His presentation isn't about cyber threats today. It's about transforming a moment of injustice into a movement for change. "What happened that night wasn't unique," he begins, his voice carrying the weight of experience. "What's unique is that we have the power to ensure it doesn't happen again." Behind him, screens display statistics, policies, and proposed reforms. Each slide represents hours of collaboration between military command, law enforcement agencies, and community organizations. The Pentagon's new military personnel protection protocol isn't just about protecting service members, Richardson explains. It's about creating a model for civilian law enforcement interaction with all citizens. General Hayes, seated in the front row, nods approvingly. The protocol, drafted within days of the incident, establishes clear guidelines for law enforcement interactions with military personnel, but its implications reach far beyond the armed forces. Every credential check, every traffic stop, every interaction becomes a chance to either build or break trust. Richardson continues, "We're choosing to build it." The reforms spread quickly. Police departments across the country request copies of the new protocols. Police academies revise their training programs. Civil rights organizations adapt the documentation strategies Richardson employed. In Alexandria, the changes are already visible. New patrol car cameras activate automatically when emergency lights are engaged, recording probable cause declarations. Officers undergo enhanced credential verification training. Community oversight boards include military veterans and civil rights advocates. Colonel Richardson didn't just expose problems, Chief Matthews tells a national police conference. He showed us solutions. His response that night is now part of our basic training. The incident becomes a case study at West Point, Annapolis, and Air Force Academy leadership courses. Cadets learn not just about Richardson's composure during the stop, but about how he transformed it into institutional change. The colonel demonstrated that true authority comes from character, not position, a West Point instructor explains to her class. His response created reform without creating chaos. Richardson's phone call that night becomes legendary in military circles, not for the power it wielded, but for the restraint it demonstrated. Senior officers study how he maintained military bearing while asserting his rights, how he documented everything without escalating tension. "We're implementing what we call the Richardson Standard," a Virginia police chief announces at a press conference. Every officer must now be able to articulate clear, unbiased reasons for each action they take. Civil rights organizations adopt Richardson's methodical documentation approach. His journal entries become templates for recording discriminatory encounters. His calm assertion of rights becomes a model for civilian response. The military community embraces its role in the changing landscape. Veterans groups establish hotlines for reporting bias incidents. Military lawyers offer assistance to civilian oversight boards. Base commanders open dialogues with local law enforcement. Colonel Richardson reminded us that our oath to defend the Constitution doesn't end when we take off the uniform. Admiral Chen tells a congressional committee, "Sometimes defending it means standing calm in the face of injustice, knowing that truth will prevail." Richardson himself continues his Pentagon duties, but his influence extends far beyond military circles. He consults with police departments, advises civil rights organizations, and speaks to community groups. Each engagement reinforces the lesson: dignity is a powerful weapon against discrimination. "The officers that night saw a black man in an expensive car," he tells a police training class. "They needed to see a fellow American whose rights deserved respect. That's not just my story. It's our national challenge." Local governments begin requiring implicit bias testing for all law enforcement personnel. Traffic stop data undergoes regular demographic analysis. Credential verification becomes a cornerstone of police training. The Richardson incident changed how we measure police performance, a law enforcement analyst explains on national news. "It's not just about numbers of arrests or stops anymore. It's about the quality of each interaction." At the Pentagon, Richardson's office becomes a hub for a new kind of national security, protecting the constitutional rights of service members and civilians alike. His calm response that night continues to ripple through American institutions, changing policies, practices, and perspectives. Sometimes, he tells a group of young officers, the most powerful response to prejudice is to let the system itself expose its flaws. That's how real change begins. 2 months after the incident, the Virginia state legislature convenes a special session. The Richardson Law, as it's already being called, promises the most comprehensive police reform in state history. Colonel Richardson sits in the gallery, watching as years of entrenched resistance give way to inevitable change. This legislation isn't just about police accountability, State Senator Harris explains from the floor. It's about transforming how law enforcement interacts with every citizen. The law mandates sweeping changes: automatic body camera activation during all stops, required verbal declaration of probable cause, immediate credential verification, protocols, and real-time demographic data analysis of police interactions. In the committee room, Richardson meets with lawmakers during a break. The key, he tells them, is making documentation automatic and review mandatory. We can't rely on citizens having Pentagon connections to ensure accountability. Police unions initially resist, but find themselves transformed by the dialogue. We've reviewed the Richardson incident extensively, their spokesperson announces. Our members deserve better training, better protocols, and better ways to identify potential bias before it leads to incidents. Technology companies develop new software for patrol cars, systems that require officers to state and record probable cause before activating emergency lights. Each stop automatically uploads to departmental databases for pattern analysis. The Richardson algorithm, as programmers dub it, scans police interactions for demographic patterns, flagging potential bias for review. What began as one man's careful documentation becomes automated protection for all. State police academies revise their entire training approach. New cadets learn about the Richardson incident on their first day. The body camera footage becomes a teaching tool, showing how quickly, unchecked, bias can escalate and how professional composure can defuse tension. Every officer now undergoes credential verification simulation, the Academy director explains. They learn to treat every ID with the same respect Colonel Richardson should have received. The reforms spread beyond Virginia. Other states study the legislation, adapt its provisions, enhance its protections. Police departments nationwide begin voluntary compliance, recognizing the need for change. Civil rights organizations coordinate, with military legal experts creating civilian training programs based on Richardson's response. Know your rights, document everything, maintain composure becomes a mantra for community workshops. The Pentagon's influence proves crucial. Military bases across the country establish liaison offices with local law enforcement, creating direct channels for addressing bias incidents. The military's emphasis on protocol and procedure helps shape civilian reforms. Colonel Richardson showed us that accountability isn't anti-police, Chief Matthews tells the State Senate Committee. It's pro-justice. These reforms protect good officers by helping us identify and remove those who abuse their authority. Richardson continues, advising the implementation process, ensuring the reforms address systemic issues rather than just symbolic changes. His military experience with protocol and procedure proves invaluable in crafting enforceable standards. Each provision of this law, he explains to a judicial review panel, creates both a responsibility and a verification method. We're not just saying what officers should do, we're creating systems to ensure they do it. The law requires annual review and updates, understanding that reform is an ongoing process. Civilian oversight boards, military advisors, and law enforcement professionals collaborate on continuous improvements. The Richardson Law works because it addresses both individual and institutional behavior, a legal analyst explains on C-SPAN. It combines clear personal accountability with systematic data collection and review. In police departments, the culture begins to shift. Officers who once resisted oversight now appreciate how clear protocols protect them as well as civilians. The emphasis on documentation and verification reduces complaints while improving community trust. We're creating a new standard of professional law enforcement, Richardson tells a graduating police academy class, one where authority comes from respect rather than force, and where accountability ensures that respect is maintained. As the legislative session concludes, the final vote isn't even close. The Richardson Law passes with broad bipartisan support, setting a new standard for police reform nationwide. Real change, it turns out, can come from one moment of dignified resistance to injustice. 3 months after the traffic stop, Colonel Richardson returns to the Alexandria Police Department. This time, he enters through the front door, not in handcuffs but in his full dress uniform, medals gleaming under the morning light. The lobby falls silent as he passes. Chief Matthews meets him in the conference room where the 4 former officers wait. Their faces show the strain of the past months. Careers ended, lives transformed, certainties shattered. This meeting wasn't Richardson's idea, but he understood its importance for departmental healing. Colonel Richardson has agreed to this restorative justice session, the mediator explains. Each of you will have a chance to address him directly. Rankin speaks first, his former arrogance replaced by genuine remorse. I've watched that body camera footage 100 times, he begins. Each viewing shows me another layer of my own prejudice. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm telling you I finally understand. Davidson can barely meet Richardson's eyes. My grandfather was a Buffalo soldier, he admits. I dishonored his service when I dishonored yours. There's no excuse. Murphy, aged years in months, simply says, I failed to uphold my oath that night, not just as an officer, but as a citizen. Chen, still in uniform but now wearing a community relations pin, offers his perspective. You taught us more through your composure than any training manual could. I teach that lesson now to other officers. Richardson listens to each statement with the same calm dignity he showed that night. When they finish, he stands, command presence filling the room. This was never about just one traffic stop, he begins. It was about a system that needed change. Your actions that night exposed what needed fixing. Your consequences serve as a reminder of why those fixes matter. Chief Matthews presents the department's formal findings. Hundreds of previous stops reviewed, patterns documented, affected citizens contacted. The ripple effects of that night continue spreading. We've implemented every reform you recommended. Matthews reports, mandatory credential verification, automated probable cause recording, real-time demographic analysis. Your experience is preventing others from facing the same treatment. Outside, news crews wait to document this moment of reconciliation. But the real story isn't in the handshakes or apologies. It's in the transformed policies, procedures, and perspectives that will outlast this meeting. Richardson reviews the department's new training protocols, now being adopted by agencies nationwide. His calm response that night has become a case study in professional conduct under pressure. Your military bearing never wavered, Chen observes. Even in handcuffs, you commanded more authority than we did with badges. The conversation turns to the future. Rankin describes his new role speaking to police academies about bias awareness. Davidson mentions counseling he's undergone to understand his actions. Murphy talks about his work with veteran support groups. Change, Richardson tells them, comes in many forms. Sometimes it takes a crisis to reveal what needs changing. What matters is what we learn and how we apply those lessons. The meeting concludes with an unexpected request. Chief Matthews asks Richardson to help establish a permanent advisory board, bringing military precision and accountability to civilian law enforcement. Your experience that night highlighted gaps in our system, Matthews explains. Your military background shows us how to fill those gaps systematically and effectively. As Richardson prepares to leave, he pauses in the lobby. The wall now displays the department's new mission statement, incorporating principles of dignity, respect, and verified accountability. Below it hangs a plaque commemorating the reforms his experience initiated. Colonel, Rankin calls out as Richardson reaches the door. Thank you, not for forgiveness, but for showing us a better way to serve. Richardson nods, understanding that true resolution isn't about erasing the past, but about ensuring it shapes a better future. The department he leaves is fundamentally different from the one that detained him, transformed not by force or fury, but by dignified resistance and systematic reform. Outside, the media asks for statements about reconciliation and closure. Richardson simply points to the new patrol cars with their automated documentation systems, the officers wearing enhanced body cameras, the visible signs of institutional change. The resolution isn't in this meeting, he tells reporters. It's in every future traffic stop where rights are respected, every credential that's properly verified, every citizen who's treated with the dignity they deserve. That's the only resolution that matters. 1 year later, Colonel Richardson parks his Lexus at the exact spot where it all began. The street looks the same, but everything else has changed. A documentary crew films as he steps out of his car, retracing the events that transformed American law enforcement. It's not about that one night anymore, he tells the interviewer. It's about what happened afterward, how one incident sparked a nationwide reformation in police conduct. The statistics tell part of the story. In departments that implemented the Richardson protocols, biased stops dropped by 60%. Credential verification compliance reached nearly perfect levels. Civilian complaints decreased, while community trust metrics improved dramatically. At the Pentagon, Richardson's office has expanded. The Military Personnel Protection Division now coordinates with law enforcement agencies nationwide, ensuring service members' rights while helping implement civilian protection protocols. Colonel Richardson's experience created a bridge between military discipline and civilian law enforcement, General Hayes explains to the documentary team. We discovered that military protocols for accountability could revolutionize police operations. The Alexandria Police Department looks different now. New officers train in the Richardson Simulation Center, where virtual reality recreates that fateful traffic stop from multiple perspectives. Every rookie must demonstrate proper credential verification and bias awareness before graduation. Watch their faces during the simulation, the training director says. The moment they realize they're making the same assumptions, the same mistakes, that's when real learning happens. Former Officer Chen, now Deputy Director of Community Relations, leads a diverse team of outreach specialists. We don't just enforce laws anymore, he explains. We build relationships. Colonel Richardson showed us that authority is earned through respect, not demanded through force. The Richardson law has spread beyond Virginia, adopted by 23 states and counting. Its key innovations, automated documentation, real-time bias detection, mandatory credential verification, have become law enforcement standards. At a National Police Chiefs Conference, Richardson's traffic stop footage plays alongside recent body camera videos showing the reforms in action. The contrast is striking. Where there was once confrontation, there's now conversation. Where there was bias, there's now protocol. The Richardson effect, as police researchers have dubbed it, demonstrates how proper training and accountability can transform officer behavior. Departments report improved morale as clear protocols remove uncertainty from civilian interactions. Richardson's own life has evolved. Beyond his Pentagon duties, he now chairs the National Commission on Law Enforcement Reform. His military background proves invaluable in designing systems that balance authority with accountability. Military service taught me that true authority comes from character, he tells a graduating police academy class. That night reminded me that character reveals itself most clearly in how we handle injustice. The former officer's stories continue as cautionary tales. Rankin travels to police academies, his testimony more powerful for his evident remorse. Davidson works with civil rights organizations, helping document bias incidents. Murphy counsels officers struggling with prejudice. We thought we were just making a traffic stop, Rankin tells cadets. Instead, we became a teaching moment for every officer in America. Local government has changed too. The Alexandria Citizens Review Board, once purely advisory, now has real oversight power. Its diverse membership includes veterans, civil rights advocates, and law enforcement professionals working together. Richardson's documentation methods have become standard practice for civil rights organizations. His careful recording of every detail that night showed how systematic documentation could drive systematic change. The colonel didn't just defend his own rights, a civil rights attorney explains. He created a template for defending everyone's rights. Technology companies continue refining the Richardson algorithm, enhancing its ability to detect patterns of bias in police behavior. What began as one man's precise military documentation has evolved into artificial intelligence protecting civil rights. At the Pentagon, a new generation of officers studies the incident. They learn not just about maintaining military bearing under pressure, but about transforming individual dignity into institutional change. Colonel Richardson demonstrated that true strength isn't in attacking injustice. His West Point instructor tells cadets it's in systematically dismantling it. 1 year after the traffic stop, as Richardson stands at that familiar intersection, he reflects on how a moment of potential tragedy became a catalyst for transformation. "We didn't just change policies," he concludes in the documentary. "We changed perspectives, and that's how real reform happens. One changed mind, one improved protocol, one protected right at a time." 5 years after the traffic stop, cadets at the FBI Academy study the Richardson incident during their final training module. The lesson isn't just about what went wrong that night. It's about how one moment of dignified resistance transformed American law enforcement. The Richardson protocols are now standard procedure in over 80% of U.S. police departments, the instructor explains. But more importantly, they've changed how we think about authority, accountability, and civil rights. In police academies nationwide, new recruits learn the incident's key lessons. Every credential check, every traffic stop, every civilian interaction carries the echo of that night in Alexandria. The changes aren't just in procedures, they're in mindset. At the Pentagon, Colonel Richardson's office has become the Civil Rights and Law Enforcement Liaison Division, coordinating between military and civilian authorities. His methodical documentation system has evolved into a national standard for reporting bias incidents. What the colonel taught us, a senior FBI instructor tells her class, is that real authority doesn't need force to be effective. It needs principles, protocols, and unwavering professionalism. The Richardson Law's impact extends beyond policing. Corporate security teams, private investigators, and even school resource officers now train using its principles. The emphasis on verified authority and documented accountability has transformed how institutions approach power. Former Officer Chen, now a national consultant on community policing, still uses the incident in his training sessions. "Watch Colonel Richardson's posture in the footage," he tells officers. "That military bearing wasn't just discipline. It was a form of resistance against injustice." The technology sector continues building on the original reforms. Advanced AI systems monitor police interactions, identifying potential bias before it escalates. Automated documentation systems ensure that every civilian encounter is properly recorded and reviewed. In law schools, the Richardson case has become required reading. Its implications for civil rights law, police reform, and institutional change are studied alongside landmark Supreme Court decisions. The genius of the Richardson approach, a constitutional law professor explains, was how it used existing systems to create new protections. He didn't break the system, he showed how to make it work as intended. Military academies teach the incident as part of leadership training. Cadets learn that true command presence isn't about domination. It's about maintaining dignity and principle under pressure. Richardson himself, now approaching retirement, focuses on ensuring his reforms outlast his career. The systems he helped create have become self-sustaining, each new generation of officers adding their own improvements to the original protocols. "The legacy isn't about me," he tells a graduating class of police cadets. "It's about what happens when we transform moments of injustice into mechanisms for change." The statistics tell a compelling story. Departments using the Richardson protocols report fewer civilian complaints, improve community relations, and better officer retention. The emphasis on professional conduct and verified authority has elevated the entire profession. In Alexandria, where it all began, a small plaque marks the spot of the traffic stop. It doesn't mention names or assign blame. Instead, it reads, "Here, dignity transformed defiance into reform, showing how justice grows stronger when authority grows wiser." The former officers' stories have become part of the legacy too. Their public acknowledgements of bias and commitment to reform demonstrate how individual change contributes to institutional transformation. As Richardson prepares to pass the torch to a new generation of leaders, he reflects on that night's lasting impact. The changes weren't just in laws or procedures, they were in how America understood the relationship between authority and accountability. "Every time an officer properly verifies credentials," he tells the FBI graduates, "every time bias is caught before it becomes action, every time dignity prevails over discrimination, that's the real legacy. Not one night's injustice, but countless days of improvement."